You are standing alone in the dark. The house is silent. The world outside has gone still. And in that silence, you hear something you were not expecting, the sound of weeping. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, broken breathing, like something boiling beneath the surface. This is the prophet, peace be upon him, alone with his Lord in the last third of the night. He was the most beloved of all creation. He was told plainly that his past and future shortcomings were forgiven. Yet night after night, he stood in prayer until his feet cracked and swelled from standing so long. You might wonder why. If he was already forgiven, what was there left to weep over? His wife Aisha once asked him the same question. She saw him praying until his feet were swollen, and she asked why he pushed himself this way when Allah had already forgiven what came before and what would come after. He answered her with a single sentence that has echoed for 14 centuries. Should I not be a grateful servant? Sit with that for a moment. His tears were not the tears of fear alone. They were the tears of gratitude so heavy it had nowhere to go but down his face. There is a hadith recorded by his companion Abdullah ibn al-Shakhir, who once looked into the room where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was praying. He described a sound coming from his chest like the bubbling of a pot on a fire, the sound of a man trying to hold back tears that could not be held back. This is not poetry. This is a description passed down from someone who witnessed it with his own eyes, and it is preserved in the collection of Abu Dawud. Now think about what he was reciting. The Quran itself describes this state before he ever entered it. In Surah Maryam, Allah describes the righteous before him, the prophets and the sincere, and says that when the verses of the Most Merciful were recited to them, they fell down in prostration, weeping. This was not new to the Prophet, peace be upon him. It was the inheritance of every soul who had truly understood who they were standing before. And in Surah Al-Isra, Allah commands him directly, rise in the night in addition to the obligatory prayers as an extra act, so that your Lord may raise you to a praise station. The night prayer was not punishment. It was not required to earn forgiveness he already had. It was invitation. It was elevation. This is the part most people miss. We assume tears in worship come from guilt, from fear of punishment, from trying to make up for something broken. But the Prophet's tears came from a different place entirely. They came from proximity, from standing that close to the divine and feeling in his body what words could not hold. Think about the last time you cried. Was it because you were afraid of losing something, or because you were overwhelmed by how much you already had? The Prophet, peace be upon him, was forgiven. He had certainty of paradise. And still he stood until his feet gave out beneath him. Still he wept until his chest rattled like water coming to a boil. Still he called himself, before anything else, a grateful servant. Scholars have long reflected on this state. It is understood as a station beyond fear-driven worship, a worship rooted in love and recognition, where the heart weeps not because it dreads the judge, but because it has glimpsed, even faintly, the majesty it stands before. This understanding comes from the broader tradition of Islamic scholarship on the states of the heart, and it is not something to be reduced to a single explanation, since the reality of what he experienced is something only he could fully know. There is a reason this detail was preserved so carefully by the companions who lived beside him. It was not meant to make you feel guilty for your own dry eyes in prayer. It was meant to show you what is possible. It was meant to show you that the closer a heart gets to its Creator, the more it feels, not less. Consider how strange this would look to someone watching from outside. A man with no sin held against him, a man promised the highest station in the next life, choosing to stand for hours in the dark when he could have rested. From the outside, it looks like hardship. From the inside, by every account passed down to us, it was the opposite. It was relief. It was the one place in his day where nothing was asked of him except presence. This is worth pausing on, because it reframes something many people misunderstand about worship. We often treat prayer as a transaction, effort in, reward out. But the state described in these narrations is not transactional. It is relational. The tears were not a fee being paid. They were an overflow, the natural response of a heart that had, for those moments, stopped thinking about anything else at all. You have likely felt a distant echo of this in your own life, even outside of prayer. A moment when something moved you so completely that words felt insufficient, and the body did what the mind could not, it simply reacted. Grief does this. So does overwhelming relief. And so, apparently, does standing before your Creator with nothing left to hide. You do not need swollen feet or a rattling chest to draw close. You need honesty. You need a moment in the dark where you stop performing and start feeling. The prophet, peace be upon him, was not crying because he had failed. He was crying because he had succeeded in seeing, even for a moment, the size of the one he stood before, and how small his own gratitude felt in comparison. So return to that image. The house is silent. The world outside has gone still. And somewhere in that stillness, someone is praying not out of fear, not out of guilt, but out of a gratitude too large for words. That was him 14 centuries ago. The question tonight is whether it could ever be you.